voters. Point is, Christians have a tendency to register to vote. Dennis, the problem is Christians.
Sorry about that. Little technical difficulties here. I'll try and get up that up later. Good morning. Hold on one second. And we will go like that. And still trying to figure out and learn the technical issues here. I'm still a rookie. Haven't been trained to find out what happens when an ad comes right in the middle of when you play it. So I'll have to get with Gina on that one. Good morning, Carrie. Happy Halloween, I guess. I don't have anything scary for you other than the topic for today. And I'm going to try and get that video back as I stall for time here. But let me see if I can do it this way. Get that intro back for you. And I think what I'll do is see if I can get it this way. And we'll see if we can get it back right about there. And then I've got to go. And let's see if this one will work.
Registered Christian voters. Point is, Christians have a tendency to register to vote. Dennis, the problem is Christians are apathetic. They don't see the issues important enough to get up off their duff and go out there and vote. And so we wonder why the nation is in the condition that it's in. Well, I get to do this because I am a Christian and I'm a pastor.
Okay. So that is Pastor Jack Hibbs from for all of it. Thank you, Carrie. And that was Pastor Jack Hibbs talking to one of my worldview mentors, Dennis Prager. Good morning, Mitch. Good subject. Thank you. Mitch says, good subject. So that was, again, he was talking to Dennis Prager. Yes, Carrie says Hibbs is good. Carrie knows Hibbs. So he's one of the, if I'm not mistaken, he's one of the pastors that kept his church open during all the stuff that I'm not sure I could even talk about still without getting taken down. So he was talking about a Barna Research poll that showed that Christians don't vote. I think it's somewhere between, I've heard different estimates of the number of Christians that don't vote in this country, and it's somewhere between 30 and 40 million, if you believe the surveys. He's talking about a Barna Research Group study. And he listed in this interview, he listed all the states in which he said evangelical. It kind of goes back and forth between evangelical and just Christian in general. But how many Christians or even evangelical Christians, there may be even 30 or 40 million evangelical Christians that don't vote in this country. And a little later, I'll show you an excerpt of what Christians are saying as to why they don't vote, or what would happen if they to make them vote. So, but I just want to talk about what my experience is, and we have talked about this before in other areas of Christians who disengage from culture and disengage. Oh, I don't worry about all that stuff. But it's not that we can disengage from culture. And in this interview, Hibbs says, if you go and buy gas, you're participating in politics and in the culture. If you go to the store and buy groceries, you are. If you go to the movie theater, certainly you are. If you watch TV, certainly you are. You can't get away from it, especially here in California when the good morning, AC. Good to see you. In my state, you cannot get away from it. It's everywhere because the government in California, in Sacramento, is passing law after law after law after law that affects your everyday life. So Christians can't get away from it. They may think they can, and a pastor may avoid it from the pulpit, think he can avoid, he hopefully, but again, there's also a lot of she's, and their political involvement may be a little different than other Christians, but a pastor may think he can get away with it. But as we saw, again, what we were talking about with Pastor Hibbs, that politics came to our doorstep and said, you will do this. So what I was going to just generally talk about, and Carrie knows Dennis Prager. Again, it's really a test of your faith, basically, to be actually obedient. One of the verses mentioned would be Proverbs, and one of the ones that Pastor Hibbs mentioned in this interview. I got slow internet again, but okay, I ain't quite 9-2, and here I am again. But basically, empower the people grown. When the righteous are in, here we go. When the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice. But when the wicked beareth rule, the people mourn. Okay, are we back? Okay. Again, I apologize. I'm having all kinds of technical issues on this side, and I don't have anybody to hold my hand through it, Michael, but or Ben. So he's back. I'm back. So isn't there a written word that no law written can stand against the Constitution? I don't know, Carrie. I don't know about that one. I haven't heard that one. Yes, I did get. Hi, Carrie. I did come back. So let me try one more time for the verse in Proverbs. Okay, when the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice, but when the wicked beareth rule, the people mourn. And another point that was brought up, and I thought was really good, if God commands you to do something, God commands us to be salt and light in the world. And we have no option as Christians. We can't just, I don't get involved in that. the excuse I hear a lot, and what Pastor Hibbs mentioned here was, oh, I don't pay any attention to politics. God is sovereign. God will work it out. Whatever happens will happen. I don't worry about it. Well, you couldn't much say that. David, he mentioned David. King David, when God said, go to war against the Amalekites or against the Philistines, David couldn't just sit back, God, I don't get involved in that. You're sovereign. You'll work it out. Well, God said, yes, I am sovereign, and I'm going to work it out through you. You have no option but to engage with what God has commanded you to do. A good example of that would be Jonah. Jonah, God had a mission for Jonah in the world to go to the Ninevites, who were the worst people on earth. The Ninevites were a combination of the Nazis, the Imperial Japan, and Stalin, the communists in that day. They were horrible. And God said, I want you to go preach to them. I want you to be my representative to them. And Jonah says, no, I don't want to get involved in that. They're the Ninevites. Why would you even want to save the Ninevites, right? Or God, you're sovereign. You can work it out. I'm going to sit this one out. And God said, no, you're not. You're going to sit this one out in the belly of a whale or a big fish. And then you're going to be puked up on the shore. And then you're going to go anyway. So we don't have the option to just say, oh, I don't get involved in politics. I don't get involved in culture. That, that'll all work out. God will take care of that. Yes, he wants to take care of it through us. That's why he left us here on the earth. He could have taken us, the old saying, he could have taken us when he saved us. He could have taken us to heaven. We were covered by his blood. Once you trust Christ as your savior, you're washed clean by his blood. He could have taken us right then and there, but he left us here to be his representatives here on earth. And everywhere you go, you are his representative in society. And society is defined more and more, for sure, these days by politics. It just is. As much as we don't like it, it is. So to all the people that always tell me that, I always say, I don't give you credit for that. If you say you're not involved in politics, I don't. Am I supposed to admire that in you? Or I'm supposed to? Oh, that's really good for you. I don't think that. I think you're hiding from your responsibility. You're pulling a Jonah. You're saying, no, God, I don't want to represent you in the public sphere, which is what we're called to do. So we're supposed to be. That's one way we can be that salt and that light, is to be active in politics. And honestly, what area of our life needs more Christian influence than politics? What more corrupt, swampish entity in our society needs us more than politics? Okay. So here, some good comments here. Andrew the Patriarch. I will never, ever hand my vote to someone who will contribute to forever wars abroad or perpetuate policies that go against basic human dignity. Okay. And just these things, someone who contributed forever wars abroad, perpetuate policies that go against basic human dignity, that affects everybody. Those things affect everybody. So why would you not, as a Christian, have a say in that? Okay. Let's see. What does Mitch Carey says? Okay. I believe it's in the same pages. Oh, the comment you were talking about the quote you were saying before. I believe it's in the same pages as the government will be replaced by the people if they don't. Thomas Jefferson, I think, said there needs to be a revolution, something to the fact that there needs to be a revolution every 20 years or something. If the government of the people, by the people, and for the people is not serving the people, then it's the people's responsibility to replace that government. Let's see what else. Okay. AC. I never was involved in politics until 2020. My eyes were opened by Biden, Harris, and all harm they have done. Well, then, yes. And that's why we need to get involved in that. If people are being harmed, we are God's instrument that he has left here to have influence on that. So, And again, there's room for um, we need to make room for people that don't quite see it our way too. One of the things I was thinking about this when they were talking about the number of Christians that don't vote, they're assuming that all Christians, and they're talking about how, I'm sorry, he was talking about all the Christians that don't vote in the various states. And he was comparing it to what the votes that Trump could have had in that state had those people voted. Like in Georgia, say, where Trump lost by 80,000 votes, there was only, of the 1.1 million evangelicals registered to vote in Georgia, only 300,000 of them voted. And Trump lost by 80,000 votes, say. And those aren't exact numbers, but something like that. And he was saying this could have changed the election and changed our society. That's assuming that a large number of those votes would go to Trump. Not all Christians and not all evangelicals are on board. Most are. So if a large number of evangelical Christians voted, Trump would win handily. And our society would be completely different. He would have won handily in 2020, and he will win handily this year if that's what's happened, if that's what happens, or if that had happened back in 2020. So I did want to share a little more, one thing on this. He goes into what the people in the survey said would be what would make them vote. There was a reason why these Christians in this Barna survey said they wouldn't vote. And I wanted to share that with you. Right here, I'm going to add it to the stage, and then
he says he winds up concluding that apathy is what plagues the church today. However, many of the Christians that were included in the study said that if they heard their pastor speak about issues from the pulpit in a biblical worldview to teach them how to respond, they would vote.
Okay, so there you have it. From that research, that was the key point as to why we've already established that Christians don't do it. And he suggested apathy. He suggested, some kind of high-minded, I'm above getting into the fray of politics. But when it really comes down to it, it's leadership. It's Christian leadership. And this is what I always tell, and I've said this before also, and I think it was AC said that she was a big Trump supporter, and I think she picked up that I'm not quite I'm all in for Trump as presidential candidate, but I think he's a result of the lack of Christian leadership we've had. And really not only Christian leadership, but also Christian participation in society. This view that Christians have that we're not here to do the dirty work. Politics is dirty work. And we're not here to do the dirty work. We're here to be nice. One of another favorite pastors of mine, Vodi Balcom, says, the 11th commandment to a lot of Christians is, thou shalt be nice. Be nice. Well, politics is not nice. Politics is full contact sport. You need to hit and hit hard, but you need to hit clean. Okay. That's a football analogy. Nobody has a problem with someone who hits hard in football, as long as they hit clean. Right. So, but the real key to this is, according to most people that say they don't vote, is they're not in this every day like we are. I think there's a name for people, normies, or people that low information voters, whatever you would call them. They don't dig into this stuff like most of us in this little world we have here do. They just go about their daily life, and they assume that because we live in the United States of America, everything politically will be okay. Oh, it's just, there's really no difference between the two parties. It doesn't really affect me. Excuse me. And it's always been great in the past. I mean, we've never had, gulags. We've never had, until about 4 years ago, we never had authoritarian moves by the government. I think there's a video going around in Minnesota where Governor Walz closed the state down back in 2020, and they had National Guard troops or state militia, whatever it was, going through the streets telling people to get in their houses and firing pellet guns at people that didn't. We never had that kind of thing. In California here, we had a guy arrested on a stand-up paddleboard by himself. Coast Guard boat came up, and a famous video of that. So until recently, we've never really had that. And we only had that recently, and people have forgotten about it already. So there has been nothing coming from the pulpit to tell these people, these normies or low information voters, whatever you call them, or just normal people, that, hey, this stuff is important and it has an effect for God's kingdom here on earth. Lord, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. So it's supposed to be done. God's will is supposed to be done here on earth. And the politics of the day is interfering with that. But the pulpit, from pastors and teachers, we hear nothing. And so the people who don't pay attention certainly haven't heard from the pulpit that there's any problem. So it's no problem. If I don't vote, both parties are the same. Well, again, we should know from recent experience, and hopefully we still do. And it's obvious, becoming more and more obvious every day, that the two parties are not the same. Even within the two parties, they're not the same. Okay, the Republican Party, there's the two factions in the Republican Party are not the same, and there are very radical factions of the Democratic Party that are not the same as traditional Democrats. But those radicals have power right now, and they are fomenting a revolution in this country, one that we've been warned about for many, many decades now. It's a Marxist revolution that's going on in this country, and nobody's paying attention. So I wouldn't say nobody's paying attention, but not enough people are paying attention. So, but it's becoming more and more obvious, and more people are catching on, and they're catching on hopefully at the right time, right before this election. So, is anybody still out there? We haven't had a comment for a while, but hopefully we're still on here. And hopefully technical difficulties have not taken over. So that's really what I want to talk about. And again, the key is Christian leadership, I think, is really the thing that's going to turn this around. Depending on how this election goes, we'll see. But leadership from the pulpit has to come. And it's not. There's too much resistance to it. There's also a big movement in Christianity away from traditional Christian conservative principles. People like Andy Stanley and Matt Chandler and these guys are taking us away from the Christian biblical worldview. And again, I always talk about worldview. And that's what this podcast is all about. So Christian leadership needs to get its act together. And what I always tell pastors or any kind of people, Christians I meet that don't like the choice they have. They don't like Donald Trump. They don't think Donald Trump is a good representation of what their worldview is. And I say, well, what have you done to represent your Christian worldview? We've had lots of fine, upstanding, respectable gentlemen, establishment gentlemen that we've elected that haven't had a clue. Here's the comments. We have had a lot of comments. Okay. So again, Donald Trump is what we have, and he's the one that gets it. He gets it more than the Christian pastors and leaders, and that's why so many Christians are willing to vote for him, and that he speaks to them. So, yes, Gary, shame on those pastors. Okay, AC, I truly believe that Trump was chosen to help the people. So many people have said it, and after all the attempted attacks, I believe it. So I do too. Yeah, and I believe in my conversation with Michael a while back. Trump is the destructor that we have called. And when I say he's a destructor, I use the analogy that he's the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man rampaging through New York. I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean that in a very good way. He's knocking over everything the establishment has put up over the past however many years. The Washington establishment. That's why everybody hates him. That's why they're trying to kill him. That's why they're trying to shoot him, because he's their worst nightmare, and because they're corrupt, and they've had this corrupt power for us, and we have sat back and not been involved. So now we have Roth the Destructor, and he is Donald Trump, and I love it. I mean, I really do. And there's no stopping. I was watching if you haven't watched his interview with Joe Rogan, please do. It's just two guys, and it'll show you why Trump appeals to men so much, and probably women too, because he's a man. He's a genuine man. Yes. Okay. Andrew, that's a good point. Just ask your own party or the Democrats. They still act corporate and have chosen someone corporate in nature. Yeah. So, yeah, the Democrats have just gone with politics as usual, and they just appointed. It wasn't Democrat. There's nothing democratic about it. It was just their machine appointing someone who would perpetuate their machine. Republicans have always done the same thing with previous candidates. Just, this is our machine candidate, and he will perpetuate the way things have always done. And the people, they have ignored the people too long with that. And so that's what's happened. And that's why Christians are so captured by this man, this crude New York former playboy, but I think he's reformed his life. A couple of years ago, he had a profession of faith. I have no reason to doubt it. There's been nothing in his life recently that would portray any of his bad behavior of the past. I think he's turned it around. He's an older man. He's a family man. So, so to all of those people that just, the pastors that won't say anything from the pulpit, and the Christians that just won't get involved in that, it's just distasteful, because he's so crude. He's so this, but he's who God has chosen, because he's the only one. You abdicated your responsibility. Now we have Donald Trump, and he's the one that God is using, I believe, to at least wake up the church and wake up America and rekindle that Christian worldview and get it going, because it's the only thing that can stop this revolution that's happening from the other side. And maybe we'll talk about that more. Maybe I'll bring out my Universe Next Door book, and we'll talk a little worldview and explore the Marxist worldview and why it's so dangerous. That would be probably a good thing to do. So, again, sorry for all the technical difficulties. Hopefully that all came through, and you got the message. It's good to see you all this morning. I'll probably be on with Ben and Michael tomorrow. And then next week, I think I'm on 3 times. I think I'm on with Michael, and then this show, and then with Ben. So thanks for listening all. I'm going to end it. Have a happy Halloween, and as we head into the Christmas season. See y'all.